Alright, hi everyone. It's time to finally do the submission critique and or feedback for the Emissive challenge, which was a recent art challenge we did on our Discord server. Sorry, things are very messy at the moment. I'm just in the process of getting new equipment for the upcoming studio, which I should move into by the end of the year, November, December, sometime around then, unless there's delays. I've also just been like super bored waiting for it all to happen, so like I've started collecting stuff that I'd want to display in there and like working more on like the idea for how the layout's going to be. And you know, all this stuff is very weird without context, but yeah, I have like a theme in my mind. Anyway, let's get on with the video. So the way I'm going to do this is if I swap on over to my screen, I should be quite small here. I may overlay like part of the artwork, so I need to be careful about that. But I got a text pad up here, so like a notepad where I can like write first, second, third place if we get to that. Got an incognito browser here with my bookmarks, which I didn't expect to show people. But look here, you can read my notes to myself. You've got mail. Don't click on Reddit. Wait, I have a portfolio for ArtStation. Anyway, so I've got the images here, which are the submissions, and then I have notepads with links here to the actual videos for video submissions, so we can take a look through these and do it bit by bit. These usually take quite a while to record, so if you watch my recent video about like proposing a new idea for like a new type of challenge, which is a music video type one, then if we do that, it might actually be easier for me to work with the submissions in the end rather than doing like feedback sessions like this. But we'll see. Hopefully this will be easier to do than like the PureF recordings. Yeah, but let's see if we can get it all done in one go. It'll probably end up being a bit of a long video, and I do have deliveries coming, so if I need to, I'll have to break in between and see how that goes. All right, so first person we're going to have a look at is Alex209. So remember, keeping in mind that this challenge is about using emissive lighting only, so emissive material lighting, which would be this ring here. This is quite a classic interpretation. And the thing this immediately reminds me of is ring lights. And if you don't know what ring lights are, if you've never done like video production stuff, ring lights is literally just a ring which surrounds a camera, which is basically your lighting source. And it's what kind of makeup artists use quite a lot. Not even just makeup artists, but people on YouTube that want like pretty lighting. But I don't really like kind of that direct ring lighting a lot in real life anyway. So it's quite a classic use case for emissive lighting here. And then we've got this glass jar with a piece of ground and a tree inside of it. Now the thing about glass is that when you're using a lot of lighting sources in a scene, especially physical sources or HDRIs and stuff, it's very easy to overwhelm the reflections on the glass. So I think they've actually done a pretty good job here because you haven't overwhelmed the glass, and that's something that we might come back to in like other submissions as well. And the reason why you haven't overwhelmed it is because it's just isolated to the border and you haven't gone over the top with like too many lighting sources. So I think that's okay. If I had to make any comments about the actual artwork here, I would say maybe the material is a bit too consistent. It looks nice. Maybe if we could have some like foliage to break it up a bit, like actual physical foliage. However, I know that if you're using kind of transparent planes to do your foliage, then it might be a bit tricky, because if you're already working with, you know, a lot of transparent bounces, that's a bit difficult. Are these actually in the same scene, or are these like kind of composed on top of each other? Because that's actually a bit difficult to tell. I can see we have light bleeding here, but I'm not sure whether this is actually inside of the object. But I think it should be, because the lighting's only really affecting the edges rather than the front and back, which is the same as a glass jar. So yeah, I mean, I quite like it. It's quite a nice kind of demonstration slash experiment of using the emissive lighting. It also goes to show that with just a very simple geometric structure, you can get quite a consistent coverage around an object. If you wanted to get that kind of coverage going around with just lamps, you'd have to use all sorts of lamps kind of coming around, and that would be like really inefficient. But anyway, yeah, quite a nice one. I like the idea of the tree being trapped in a jar. Reminds me of, you know, like Pirates of the Caribbean ships being trapped in jars. That's an idea. I might do a piece of artwork for that one day. So thanks for submitting that, Alex. That's quite a nice one. Also, just to add one more little bit, I like these little imperfections on the glass because they are also highlighted by the lighting, and I think that works quite well. So let's move on to the next one, BouncyHippo. I like this one because I like cyberpunk type things, and it's kind of using my preferred color scheme, the kind of like blues to purples. But there are two words which come to mind with this one, and that's cool but cluttered. Because there's quite a lot happening, like all at once, all across the screen, quite high frequency. I think a lot of it has to do with the rain coming down. It's quite heavy. Maybe if we balance that a bit more, because there's a lot of rain going on. And they also tend to look more like actual cylinders with content. Maybe if they were like more like droplets. I know that it's getting the effect of like the rain coming by really quickly, but I just think it might be a bit too much. But I really like the creative use of the emissive lighting. You're trying to balance out the darkness of the scene by having light coming up from the bottom here. I like the kind of holographic type surface here coming over the building. That's quite classic, you know, like these advertisements in front of buildings in science fiction scenes. But I really like the character here because you're giving us some intrigue on the character. The thing with emissive lighting like this is it's very difficult to light other objects in the scene, like your environment as well. Some people do this very well, and I think when we come to Chris James's submission, that's actually quite an interesting case to talk about. In other cases, it's quite difficult, and when you've got these really dark materials that are highly reflective, it's very difficult to disperse the light across them with these emissive light sources. As you can see kind of down here, the light doesn't travel very far on these buildings, which is why you have to have them at super high values, and even then we end up with like these harsh cutoffs. So it's really a balancing act with emissive lighting and reflective materials. It's very difficult to flood your scene with lighting, and I think that's kind of what we're seeing here. But also another interesting point is that we have these lovely hover cars, but I can't see, like, it takes extra effort to see the shape of them properly because the contrast between the lighting source is so high and the lighting source isn't representing the actual shape of the object. So maybe if we had some maybe even finer lighting kind of going around like the back and the contours, then it might be easier to see. So yeah, I mean, I really like it. You're trying to balance like many things, and it's quite ambitious. Also, compared to like some of the other entries, you've tried to go for a lot all at once, and that's really cool. But that's the whole point of this challenge, isn't it? Like you're using this restriction of only using emissive lighting, and it's kind of learning how to use that in response to other materials, other types of surfaces, and just try and balance it right. And also keeping that all within like this noise limit, because as we know, it can get very noisy using these types of light sources in cycles, especially if you're using reflection. And my God, if these are transparent rain droplets. So yeah, just double checking, because if this is cycles, which I can't actually be completely convinced because there's not like a lot of example of bounce lighting. There are some cases here which you could actually do with screen space reflection, but or even then like an SSGI add-on. But if it is, then wow, like if these are transparent rain droplets, that might have been a bit tricky to render, and well done if you did. I'm just trying to identify some things actually. I'm trying to see if I can find obvious examples of like any denoising, but I can't. So, or at least it's not obvious, but then again, we've got like some chromatic processing afterwards. So sorry, BouncyHippo, just taking a moment to try and really analyze your image here, see what's going on. Did you use a texture for this? Anyway, yeah, sorry, I think it's interesting. Let's move on. So we've come over to Chris James CG one, and I mean, this one immediately, very, very cool. Lots of detail. Chris James is just like brilliant with all this sort of stuff. And if you've seen his Instagram account as well, you'll get a feel for just how professional he is. We've got lots of different like elements of detail going on here. It's a really, really good use of emissive lighting. However, it's not above critique. So the only complaint I would have here is that though all of these surfaces are fantastic and I love the balance between them, we do have a bit of a problem with conflicting patterns. And what I mean by that is like on an immediate glance, right? So again, like not looking at this for too long, on an immediate glance, I can't tell what's in the center. So I can't tell what that creature is. It takes a moment to kind of get an idea for what it is, but part of that is because first of all, it's a complex shape with a complex outline, but it's conflicting with this complex pattern coming through the glass from behind. This is the thing about trying not to overwhelm glass that we mentioned earlier. Also, that's kind of made a bit more difficult by the fact that it's a dark surface. So like the kind of lighting behind doesn't necessarily resonate with the lighting of the subject, because we're not getting these strong rim lights in accordance with this strong background light pattern. So it doesn't feel like those lighting energies are necessarily consistent. Does that make sense? It's a bit of a difficult thing to try and explain. It just feels like, given how strong that light is, there should be more light on the creature. Does that make sense? So again, that's like a tricky element of trying to balance these emissive lighting sources. However, with that in mind, so like despite the fact that we have such strong light and then a really dark creature, Chris has managed to achieve flood lighting with emissive lighting very well. And part of that is by having brighter reflective materials and also keeping it quite contained in an environment so it has more opportunity to bounce onto other surfaces. So we can see that here as light is coming down the back and then moving down the surface there. I think this is also bleeding up from here and also along the top, because we can see that these lights at the top are quite long, even though we can't see much of them in the actual frame of the image. So if you take a look at this row going all the way down in the reflection there, that's flooding more light into the scene, even going past what the camera can see. So we're getting quite a lot of sources here. And I wonder how long it took you to render this out. We can see more evidence of noise in this than we could in like Bouncy Cows one, for example. And I actually quite like seeing some noise. It gives it like a nice grainy effect. But also the thing where Chris always comes out on top in these artworks is just like the really cool quality and like styles and creatures and stuff. Like you can have a look at this for ages and just keep seeing more and more details, and it's really well done. And I think he was using insects as inspiration, because I remember seeing a discussion on the Discord server about that. So that's a really, really good one. I like that. Okay, so moving on, we've got Curtis Holt. So this one's kind of cool, a little bit basic though. Like the ground over here is really flat and there's not much going on, and there's just kind of like random spheres there. I get that it's probably trying to like reflect the light sources up here, but you know, it's not really necessary. If anything, taking a look at this, I would say that you're trying to focus on the side material more than anything else. So I would hazard a guess at saying this is more of a demonstration for how this material looks more than it actually being an art piece. So, but I kind of like the idea. I get that you're going for like a wave versus a particle over here, like in response to light, and I also like the color variety. But yeah, I'd say if there's anything to add to this, then maybe try and give it like more of a storytelling element, maybe focus more on adding some extra details down here to kind of represent that this might be a space that people have been walking through, and then that light coming from the top will also kind of reflect off of those. So I guess it's just more opportunity to do more stuff here. But yeah, I kind of get the vibe that the purpose of this was for something else, and then it was kind of just readapted for this challenge. See, I thought it would be funny to try and critique myself like along with other people. Alright, moving on, we have Ebix, and you did tell me how to pronounce the second part of the username, but I forgot, so I won't try. All I remember is I tried several different versions of the name, and I got them all wrong, so I'm now afraid of trying again. On initial glance, it's quite difficult to tell what's going on here. That's because everything is quite dark, and where we do have kind of highlights, it's not super obvious. It seems quite abstract, and if I had to interpret this, I would say that we have like several kind of, I hesitate to say pad-like things, with like these kind of repeating rings coming in, focusing towards this plasma ball-like sphere in the center. So we've got one here looking in, one at the top, one there, and one there, coming from behind a bit. And these seem to be like providing our light sources onto the sphere. It's quite abstract, it's quite interesting. I don't know what it is, but I like how the light from those extra sources is kind of affecting these particulate elements in the center. It's also quite interesting seeing an effect like this as it grows around the sphere. So it's quite abstract, I think it's quite a creative use of the lighting, but I do like it, and it seems like it could be like a good source for getting other types of artwork as well, because if you actually came in with the camera here and kind of like had it so we had some foreground and background elements closer to the camera with those particulate pieces, then we can get some like really cool motion graphics like still frames with that. So there might be opportunity to try experimenting more with this, but I think it's quite a nice demonstration and a nice experiment as well. So well done for using the lighting. I quite like how the geometry is kind of like randomized and scattered here as well. That's going to get you some unpredictable lighting. So yes, thanks for sharing, Ebix. Next up we have Emarco, and there's actually a video for this as well, so let's grab that and put you over here. Alright, just making sure that I'm on the highest quality. There we go. So we have a car here, then we have like this kind of curve of lighting coming by affecting the car. Got these side screens going on. There's a bit of music, but I won't play it because I don't know like if it's royalty free or anything. I love how these screens are kind of showing different elements, and that's giving us different color. This is like a really technical and creative use of the lighting. Oh nice, also the environment lighting at the top. So again, like on points of technicality, I think this should get really high marks because you're really taking the challenge to heart of using specifically emissive sources in several different ways in this to kind of light the subject. So you really are like tackling the challenge head on, which I like. As for the actual artwork though, I mean, I don't know if you actually made the car, let me know if you did. So I can't like judge you for or against that. But like the environment's fairly simple. I quite like it though because I like kind of brutalist architecture in artworks, but I shouldn't be too biased about that. I think like the main points you'll get on like this artwork is the technical usage of the emissive lighting, because that is pretty cool, and also that you've managed to animate it as well. Yeah, so the bits like this where you have like the curves coming in, the environment, and then the side screens, that's really nice. Alright, so thanks for sharing that, Emarco, and I shouldn't have closed the screen. Let me grab it again. Alright, so next up we have Garry Gatling. Let's check out this one. Okay, so I'm not too sure what's going on here. It seems a bit abstract again, and this ball over here seems a little bit similar to like the one in Ebix's, but I quite like the whole kind of like putting hands up in front of light, and also it's not immediately obvious where the emissive light source is coming from in this, so I think you've kind of hit it quite well, which again is quite nice. I'm assuming there's a volume here, and that's another thing. Using volumes with emissive lightings can actually be really cool. But yeah, I think this one's quite simple, so it's a bit difficult to see what's going on, but I like that you've kind of given it a try. I think there's maybe like an interesting storytelling element there. You know, maybe more could be done with it to kind of make it more obvious what's going on. And I'm also not too sure what this is, but I think it's nice that you've tried to use like a transparent or reflective object in there to try and react with the lighting. But yeah, thanks for sharing, Garry. Next we have a lovely one from Gekitsuu. Hopefully I said that okay. And this one's lovely. It's an appreciation of all their favorite Blender and CG YouTubers. So we can see them all here, and yes, I do see the Hi Curtis in the center, so hello. Very lovely. I also like the play button in the background. This one's just like really nicely thought out. Let's see if we can identify these. I won't know all of them. So we got Jan Sculpts, we've got the Corridor Crew, we've got CG Cookie, we've got Ducky, we've got, is that CG Matter? Like, is that supposed to be his weird red thing, or maybe not. Or is it Arendelle? Because they both have these kind of weird... Yeah, there we go. It's Arendelle because we got that curve there and we got the green line going. What is it with, like, I mean, I love these guys, I love them, but why the random abstract spheres? Like, what? Anyway, so that's Polyfjord here, I believe, just to double check that. I love Polyfjord's clean artistic styles. It's a really nice logo as well. We got Flip Normals there, we got Kev Binge, who's actually just passed 100,000 subs. So well done, Kev. Woo! I think this one is Blender Guru. I'm not sure about that. Okay, I'm kidding. So yeah, the rest of them are kind of just words. I like how you've got Decoded's actual font there. We got Chris Preninger, Southern Shotty. Actually, Pop Nerd, I don't know them. Okay, Pop Nerd, so I'm looking them up. I think it's this Pop Nerd and not the other Pop Nerds, because it's the same logo. Ah, okay, cool. Create a quick apartment scene, Blender 3.0, Blender animation. Oh, this is nice actually, because I need to learn more about like other members of the community when I do the roundup videos. So I'm gonna take that and just make a note, add to tracking list. Okay, so yeah, thanks for the recommendation there. Chris Bailey film, he's cool. CG Boosters, this logo. Max Edge, we've recommended him. We know Inhuber. 3D Greenhorn. This is turning into like an impromptu community roundup video. 3D Greenhorn. I think I've seen their videos, so let me add that as well. Denzel the Griffin we'll start with. Denzel the Griffin. 3D character artist, a lot of ZBrush stuff, okay, quite nice. 3D clothes in Blender, that could be very cool. Rocks in Blender, alright, nice stuff. Let me add them as well. And Critelli art. Let's check you out. Cinematic fantasy scenes. Oh, I think I've stumbled on these before, but I can't be sure. I need to check that out. Okay, so mixing Blender with Photoshop as well. That's quite a cool idea. So I'm guessing like overpaints, basic geonode scattering, sci-fi illustration. All right, nice. It's quite unique. And you'll need to tell me what this is. This is going to look really stupid if I should already know who this is, but I'm not sure that I do. So feel free to let me know who this represents here on the side. Oh, also, did we take a look at Sophie Jantak? We know who Mitch Sinave is, because he's done a lot of, motion graphic stuff in Blender. All right, how I use textures to paint with grease pencil. That could be cool. Sketchy. Oh, okay, nice. So another person for doing grease pencil work, which we don't have many of, so it's really cool to know about that. Let's add them to the list. And Masha or Marsha Bazueva, let's check them out. Sculpt January, I think I might know this person. Do I know who this is? I think I've heard their name before. Are they helping out? Because I know that there's someone helping out with another kind of creator group who's also called Marsha, and I may be pronouncing that wrong, but again, super creative use of the emissive lighting. This one's got like a really nice story behind it, I would say, because it's like just a nice appreciation piece, and like we love fan arts like this. So I should actually send this to like all these other creators, but you should actually send it as well. Gekitsuu, which I don't know if I'm pronouncing your name right either, but yeah, send this to like these guys because I'm sure they'll appreciate it, if you haven't already, that is. Nice to see how this emissive light is kind of like interacting with the background as well. And also I love that you've put a play button in there. Should I get it? Yeah, I'll get it down. Here we go. Let's just... Yay! Fun! Alright, I'll put you back there. Alright, so thank you very much for that submission. Oh god, look, see, we're not even halfway through. We might have to start speeding up a bit. Alright, so we have Hili here. This is a nice one because it's an animation. I think, how did you describe it? You called it the Omega Furnace. It smelts things into a perfect material. This one is again super creative, nice use of the prompt. I like the animation, it's flickering. It reminds me of like a gas hob, and that's especially true with the ending here as it kind of settles down and we get like the blue flames. That's a very nice one. I like it. And also with like the motion blur and stuff, I think it's quite well done. Thank you for sharing. Oh, come in. All right, hello again. I just had to let my brother out the house and say hi to the dog. She might whine because now she's alone downstairs. If she does, I'll go back down. Anyway, yes, thanks for sending this one, Hili. Let's move on. Next we have KDawg. All right, let's grab your video and have a look. Okay, this one's quite a nice little animation. A nice square one with these things which remind me of like oysters, I guess, in a way. Just like kind of flipping over. Let's play that again. And you've even got like a 2160p. You've done it in 4K. Whoa, hot damn, that's a lot of detail. It's also quite satisfying, I would say. I like how you got like these bars going as well. Is there like a light source overhead kind of getting that effect? That's quite a nice way of doing it, like creating these custom patterns on reflective objects for the use of like off-camera things. Yeah, pretty cool. Then we have Khamurai, another YouTuber. I quite like this one because is, well, it feels like it should be part of an animation, like a kind of unstable, like semi-organic sci-fi blob that's kind of just like wobbling around and doing stuff, you know. But it's very cool. I like it. Kind of like mix of what seems like transparent material here, also with an object which looks like it's got a kind of like a Fresnel or a facing value, which is affecting an emission. Then we have a geometric light source kind of going around the edge. If I had to make a comment, I would say maybe it would be nice having some kind of like bloomish stuff going along here, a bit like if you check out, you know, my recent artwork. Hold on, if I bring this open, you know how this has got a little bit of a bloomy element around it. If we could have something a bit like that there, rather than having it kind of semi-transparent. But then again, maybe that interacts too much with the center object, I don't know. But I think it's quite a cool art piece anyway. Satisfying to look at. Thank you for sharing, Khamurai. And yeah, so moving on to KulTigin or KulTigin. It's quite a nice effect, somewhere between like a microbial spore and a science fiction virus. I think it's pretty cool. If I had to make any comment, I would say maybe the generated textures look a bit too obviously like generated textures. However, again, it's quite nice, but this emissive source is so strong here, it looks like there should be more bloom coming off of it again. Maybe the background is also quite simple and the framing is a bit off balance, so this object is a bit too high on the frame. But otherwise, I quite like it. It's interesting. Also, as a question, did you hand put these cylindrical pieces in, or is this done procedurally? That'd be quite interesting to know. Yeah, thank you very much for sharing. Lopai, or Lopai. This is giving me No Man's Sky vibes immediately. Maybe that's what you were going for, because it's got that kind of vibrant style and like a kind of soft terrain. I don't know what's going on down here, but that's actually quite interesting. Maybe is there like fossils kind of embedded in the surface? I like it. Also, like colored grass reminds me of No Man's Sky again, and I've done my own like interpretation of that artwork. But I really like this kind of like soft cartoony science fiction type things. But also here is another case where it's like trying to get light from emissive sources to disperse over the environment could be quite difficult, which might be why it's so dark back here. Interesting how we have like this celestial object back here also being like another emissive object. Is this like an HDRI in the background here? That's okay. Like I've allowed those in the challenge rules. Kind of adds a bit more to the background. But yeah, I think like maybe the amount of lighting is a bit off balance, especially since these kind of grass plains here are like so lit up, but the surrounding terrain for it is not. So yeah, maybe it's just like a question of balance for this, but I still think it's quite a nice one, and I really like the ground down here. Is that subsurface as well? All right, interesting. All right, Malygaro. I remember you had two versions of this, because the first entry was not sticking to the challenge. It was actually using other light sources, and then this one is using emissive light sources. And again, it's very difficult to balance, but it's a nice space scene with different planets here. And I like the variety of the different planets. It's quite nice, and I like that you've tried to use like this nice wispy emission. But yeah, like I think, again, maybe obviously kind of generated sources being used, and they're a bit inconsistent like between them, and maybe it'd be nice to have like a higher contrast of lighting sources rather than it kind of all looking like it's lit the same amount, if that makes sense. But you know, it's still an interesting one, and thank you for taking part and submitting. All right, next one is Mbee. Immediately, you know, on the surface, we look at this and think, aha, this is a high quality piece of artwork, and it is. Because we don't even have to look close at it to get the feeling that it is, because I think the balance of color and light is so careful and precise. Like, would you also notice this? Like, when I flicked over to this artwork, you immediately go, wow, that's a good one, without even looking at it in detail. Like, did you notice that? Because when we look at this in more detail, we will notice some things. But something about the balance of the grain, like the detail, the subtlety between light and darkness, because in artwork, darkness is just as important as light. So you can creatively use kind of shadowy areas as well as well-lit areas. I know in this video I've been like putting an emphasis on trying to like get the dispersal of light from emissive sources, such as like with this BouncyHippo one, and then all of a sudden I'm saying that darkness is as important as light, but most people don't really get the balance right, or they don't use it appropriately. I think this is a much more appropriate usage of it, because it makes more obvious sense that the area under the tree would be dark and the area around here would be dark, considering that our only light source is something coming from above. Anyway, taking a look at this in more detail, I like the grain on this one because it feels like we're actually looking for a camera film. Anything to complain about is the pose for the character is quite simple. It's almost like a T pose, even though I kind of feel like he's putting his hand on the dog. I couldn't even tell it was a dog. It might just be like a coat. In fact, I'm still not entirely convinced. If it is a coat, it's quite a wide pose to be holding it, so I think it's more likely a dog. Looking at the top here, this looks quite obviously just like a kind of random texture or a generated texture scattered around. I'm not too sure that this kind of blobby paint-like thing actually complements like the rest of the scene and its intricate details. Also, it's obviously a repeating pattern and it's just been scaled down from a simple object because we can see that this part of the pattern here is the same as this. So if you rotated it slightly, that would have resolved that issue. But otherwise though, I quite like it. Also down here, these kind of light dots, are they supposed to be in the background or the foreground? I think the foreground because they're coming in front of the tree, but they kind of look like they're technically laid out like a series of lights on a sci-fi platform, but I'm not sure what they are. Like lights kind of floating in front of the tree. Are they supposed to be like fireflies? If so, why are they so kind of structurally aligned? But forgetting that, like stopping from obsessing over it, if we took a frame just here from like one corner to one corner, that's lovely. I really like that. I think the materials balanced together here. The lighting is very well balanced again. Also, we do have some physicality with the vegetation as well, which I appreciate. Maybe if there was some variety in like the depth of the ground, just slightly. It doesn't have to be much. That could also be quite nice. So those are my like kind of two main comments here. Something about the pose, something about the textures and materials as well. It's like everything else in the scene is so well balanced, except up here. It just seems a bit off. But overall, I think it's great. So thank you, Mbee, for taking part. Then we come to Mel-WasThis. Okay, so it does like we've got a bunch of radioactive waste here, and it's in a landfill, and we've got like this waste kind of like coming up, which is quite a nice effect. That's a creative use of the lighting. Although the scene feels quite dark. What's this empty space kind of over here on the right? Are we supposed to be looking through something? That's not completely obvious. I feel like the scene could be better lit because everything seems kind of unlit, if that makes sense, even though we have a light source. So I think this one's kind of more of like a lighting concern. There's also quite a strong amount of the chromatic aberration going on, but you know, again, it's quite interesting. I like the idea. I don't know how many people would have thought to do radioactive waste, but nice. Next up we have Owlgust, and before I even look at the main artwork, what are these tiny white pixels up here on the left? It annoys me. It's just out of place. Anyway, sorry, forget that. This is a really cool idea. I think you left a comment in the Discord server about being able to use HDRIs this way, so I'm assuming this is an HDRI. And I said yes, because that is a really creative use of emissive surface lighting and having that kind of bleed out over the field here. Reminds me a bit of Monsters, Inc. You know, do you remember that film? You would have like different doors and you could open them into like different bedrooms and stuff. Maybe that's part of where the concept came from. I'm not sure, but yeah, no, like points for creativity on this one. Okay, PixelGlow. This one's again like an upper abstract one, quite an interesting effect. I'm not entirely sure. I think, where's the light sourcing come from? Is it from the material on these kind of like noodly pieces? That'd be quite cool. It's not immediately obvious. Most of these look like reflections, and I think some of these are sources. Yeah, I mean, I think it's quite interesting anyway. How did you put this together? Was this with like geonodes or something? Interesting experiment. Nice one. Okay, Skaros. Whoa, the vibrancy. No, I like it. I mean, I like vibrant colors, so I think this is very cool. And I also like mineral things. It looks like we're in a cave. There are minerals. I would say that the points where the crystals connect with the cave is a bit harsh, so they don't really seem like they come from the same place. But I do like the structure of it. It also looks like you're using some kind of like facing or Fresnel technique to give us a bit of like depth on the object there, because emissive materials don't really look like that traditionally. But I love the colors reflecting off of these structures, slightly dispersed as well, so there's some roughness on these. Yeah, just quite a nice one to look at. Okay, Drury. We have a character here. I like the pattern here, kind of breaking them up, and also the material on this necklace. Quite nice. This eye kind of floating here is a little bit creepy, but that's okay. Stretch. Sorry. My body hasn't moved much. Okay, so the emissive source I'm imagining is coming from this object going around here. I like the disruptive pattern on this. That's nice, it's very cool. It's not too consistent, it's not immediately obvious that it's like a generated noise texture or something like that. So I think that's quite a cool source. I also like that you've got these kind of star-like things in the background. It's quite ethereal. I like it. I'm assuming this character was made using something else. Feel free to let me know what that is. If that's true, it feels like we've got some denoising going on. Yeah, just an interesting one. Thank you for submitting. Okay, so I never asked you how to pronounce your name. Tieguaili, something like that. You have an interesting one. This one, I'm interpreting it as an underwater scene, but inside of a cave. Is that what we're looking at? Because it looks like we've got a seabed with some nice vegetation there, so like foliage, and the lighting sources comes from the cave. cave, maybe it's like some kind of glowing mineral, something like that, or maybe light is dispersing through it from above, so it's kind of crystalline. Yeah, I think it's quite a calming one. Again, it's another one that kind of reminds me of No Man's Sky, going back to Lopai's one over here. Feels like these two could go part and parcel, like on the same planet or something. But yeah, I think that's a nice creative source, and I like that there's a bit of glare going on with this as well. It also seems like the light coming from above is filling the scene quite well. So again, going back to the point of learning how to disperse the emissive light throughout a scene. So yeah, this is a cool one from Tim4242. So we have some kind of like molten-ish crafted sphere here being held and I guess smashing into something. Maybe it's some kind of like forging process, who knows. I like the kind of displacement on this sphere and how the material is kind of adapting to the depth. That's a nice way to manage the emissive light because you're taking in like geometric information and using that to make it more interesting. That's quite a cool source of light. I like the effect coming off the surface. Very nice. Next we have Tomato here, and there's not much going on in the frame, but there's also an animated version, so we should take a look at that. But actually, yeah, let's do that first. Okay, so if I bring that up, again, another 4K one. So we're kind of rotating around and then the effect kind of like disrupts and then spreads out. So that's very cool. Again, rotating and then disrupt. So immediately this reminds me of like the galactic arms, I suppose. So if you imagine them as like a series of galaxies or stars and then they're kind of just like exploding outwards, but there's so much empty space on this. Like this would be so much better if we were zoomed in on it, you know, and like maybe if we were looking down one of the arms as it kind of curves up and then like explodes outwards. So I think kind of reminding us of the Ebix one over here. There's potential for getting some really cool effects if you actually just went into the effect and kind of like did more of it, like from a compositional standpoint. So it's a cool start, it's a cool idea, it's a cool use of emissive lighting, but I'm interested in seeing some extra effects made with this. Alright, next up we have WezzyOCarter. This is a cool idea. This is quite a creative idea as well. From a storytelling standpoint, there's a lot of storytelling going on. A nice bomb on top of like molten lava. I don't know why it hasn't exploded yet. I guess the emissive light source is from above as well, because that would be where the white's coming from, and from the lava itself. That's why we get the orange glow there. And I'm guessing these are emissive materials for doing the kind of hologram and also on the cable as well. Bomb timer from 59 to 0. Real size 100%. I don't know what that means, but yeah, it's quite interesting. Only thing I would say is this material feels out of place, kind of on the side here. I don't know whether these grooves are part of the material or just flat shading. I think it's flat shading, but I can't be sure. It's different to the one from above though. So that looks like it's smooth and that looks like it's flat shaded or something like that. So maybe a bit inconsistent. Yeah, it's quite an interesting one. Again, like people have been quite creative with this challenge, which I quite like. Like this limitation seems to have pushed people into quite a creative thought process. Next up we have White Rooster Productions, so they've done a lot of really cool stuff in previous challenges as well, to the point where I'm starting to feel like it's unfair putting them in first, second or third place because they'll keep getting it. Right, I'm kidding, let's take a look. So this is a really cool piece. I'm immediately thinking we're inside some kind of accretion disk which has created a planet, which we're seeing here. It's sort of in the middle, and maybe like the main star or light source is coming somewhere over here. I like this. Even stuff like the kind of light bleeding out from the surface, it kind of gives me the idea that maybe there's kind of dust being ejected or disrupted by maybe the orbital pattern of something. I like the kind of nebulaic aspect of it. And I think it's quite nice, again, maybe going back to Garry's piece here, how the source of the emissive lighting is disrupted by something. It's not immediately obvious, it's kind of hidden away. So it's a good demonstration of how you can take that light and bleed it out inside of a scene and use it to kind of illuminate everything else. Very nicely done. It would be so cool to see this as an animation of some kind. But again, I guess, you know, given the volumes, the emission, the passes, that would take like ages to render. Now we come to Wilson, another Blender YouTuber as well. Quite an interesting thing here. It's well lit as well, so there's some good contrast here. A nice abstract one. I like the shape. Reminds me of like some Bigen related things to do with the faceting. You got some transparency here, so you're having like the light bouncing around. This is another nice one to look at. So yes, and who else was the YouTuber? Khamurai. Look at you two, you're having a battle. The battle of the abstract YouTubers. One has gone all round and one has gone all harsh corners and stuff. So yes, I'll let you two fight it out. You let us know who wins. Okay, now we have Worst Time Ever. And if I was to interpret this, so we've got a character here, kind of reminds me of like Warhammer type things. It looks almost like a 3D scan, almost. Maybe it is, I'm not sure, like a figurine that's been scanned in or something, which is quite an interesting idea, if that is true. And then we have, these are the weapons, I suppose, and it's firing out these emissive lines, and those are becoming the light sources. I think that's quite cool, and I imagine there's also another source sort of outside of the frame which is giving us the extra light. I think that's a cool idea. Maybe because it's quite a dark frame, there could be a bit more light, and again, maybe some bloom on what's coming out here, so a bit of extra composition, which is the kind of same thing which I've said to a few other people as well in the artworks. But yeah, I think it's quite a cool idea, because I don't think anyone else has like kind of scanned things in. That is, if I'm correct about the scanning, and it's not just like a really, really good texturing job. So yeah, I like that. Next we have Zap. This is quite a classic one, a classic idea of using a light bulb with the filament lighting up. I can see quite a strong amount of denoising going on, I believe, which I guess is quite appropriate given that, you know, we're kind of pushing all this emissive light through glass. I like the glare on it as well. Maybe the glare is a bit too strong. For this case, it might actually be nice to see like a glow instead of, what are these, like the ghost kind of streaks or whatever you would call them. I can't remember the exact category for that type. Yeah, maybe just like a glow coming out, because I think the glow will make the filament feel a bit more thermal, I suppose, like a bit heated. But yeah, just quite a nice one. And then I think the last one on the list here is Zepht, or Zepht, or Zepht. This is cool. Kind of alien again, gives you like another No Man's Sky-ish vibe with like these kind of like towering, I was going to say foliage, but I'll just call it like fungi shapes. I like that even though it's emissive, we can still see the shape of it going on, which kind of leads me to believe there may be another kind of like Fresnel-ish element going on. Only possible complaint I would have is that, again, like it seems like these are generated textures a bit too obviously, with like the, what do you call it, the disruption or the disturbance, the distortion, just set really high and then just like apply it to everything. Other than the stalks here, which look quite nice, although it does seem like we've got some grunge coming in. That seems like something right up my alley. But if we have a look between these, do you see what I mean? Like, but like the tops of the caps seem much more obviously generated than the actual stalks. I think that's because they're taking into consideration like the kind of distance with the ground as well. But I like the ground here. I'm not too sure what that's made of, but I like that it's kind of physical as well and kind of cutting into things. But overall, I like the vibe of this one. Gives me like this kind of strange, fantastical vibe to it. All right, so is that everyone? Let me just double check through the Discord server list. Oh yeah, so just checking through the list, worstimever did say that it was a photo scan of one of their minis. Only lighting is from the particles emission. Okay, that's cool. So that is actually causing the lighting for the ground there. Okay, I suppose it seems like the ground is more bright than the actual statue itself, but it might be because there might be a lighting discrepancy between the textures when they came in from the scan. But I'm not sure. Like, these seem like this is not part of the same scan here, given the harsh line. So maybe if like the textures were adjusted slightly to be a bit brighter, then it might feel like the light's a bit more consistent. Then you could turn the light output up from that, and then it would kind of look more normal. I'll just read what some of the people said just to give like some extra context. Chris James, calling it containment. This was a challenge. Forcing myself to use only source lighting was super interesting, learned a bunch and had fun. Now I think I'm going to go and collapse. Yeah, you did a really good job at this one. I think I'm actually going to keep that up as like one of the contenders. Hold on. Let's see, for this one, PixelGlow. Had high hopes that for my first challenge submission I'd get time to finish something that the perfectionist in me wouldn't mind sharing. Typically, I failed to find any time until early this morning, but I'm glad I got something submitted at least. They call this one the churn. Yes, thank you for submitting something. You know, that's the whole point of these challenges, just to actually get yourself to make something, and I think it's a really interesting effect, so thank you for sharing it. Really, the most important part of this challenge is the participation. You know, I'm not really too fond of assigning people like first, second, and third places. All of this stuff is so subjective, but I'm just happy that you've submitted something, so thank you so much. For Skaros' one here, they said they made it in Blender, did post-production in Photoshop. That's quite interesting. I wouldn't have been able to tell. Okay, Owlgust did confirm that this was, they said, simple idea I got after discovering parallax textures room is shader using HDRI. That's interesting. Emarco had a note about his nice car animation, which I did find impressive. I might hold you up as a contender as well. Let's put you here, just because of like, just the variety of like the different uses of the light. Here is my submission for the contest, Carbon Light. Here I was testing around with some ideas and combinations in creating animated emission lights and how well it can reflect on an environment and object. Let me play it as well while I'm talking to give you something interesting to look at. Due to heavy render times and limited time I had due to my schedule, resulted in that I was rushing and had to reuse an older model and could only sample it down to 40 samples, which is the cause of the annoying noise. The music is copyright free, but just in case, remove the sound in your video, Curtis. Yes, I have removed the sound anyway, it's fine. Since the song is custom made for this video by a pal of mine. Ah, okay. So that's interesting. Well, I've got it off anyway, just in case, but it's nice to hear that your friend made the song for this music. Sorry, that your friend made the song for this video. Yeah, even though, okay, so I had a feeling that the car was, you know, a pre-made model, But even despite that, I think you've done such a good job at the different use cases for the emissive lights there, so well done for that. Okay, so Garry Gatling says, realizing now that it pales in comparison to other submission, but hey, it's done, so why not post anyway? Look, it doesn't matter, like if you think it's better or worse than anyone else's. You've made something, you've taken part in the challenge, that's the most important thing, so thank you for sharing. For Zephth's one, they said, here's my submission for the challenge. I made some geometry node mushrooms. So they're made with geometry nodes, that's cool. All the lighting is coming from them. It's called Fungal Repose. Very nice, very nice. We got a nice description from WezzyOCarter for this one. It's a bomb in the middle of lava. Had no idea. Thank you very much. I'm kidding. Yeah, no, it's very nice. I like that. Ibik says, I call this one out of time. Yes, I used hexagons again. Stay back. I'm running on very little sleep. Yes, well, who doesn't love hexagons? They're in vogue, as they say. Curtis Holt said, wave or particle. I was actually just preparing a demo for an upcoming video, but if I'm going to take part in one of the challenges, it has to be this one. All right, so yeah, the way you said you're preparing it for for a different video, I guess that's to do with materials, right? White Rooster has some more details on this piece that I liked. This is one of those happy accidents, lighting VDBs with a single image plane set to emission. The rest is all composite magic. Okay, see, that's quite an interesting idea. And I wouldn't have been able to tell that necessarily just from looking at the image. Okay, Lopai confirmed in the description that the background material is like a kind of world node, so that's fine. Yeah, that was allowed. Self-made shader, yeah, perfectly fine. Made it in 24 hours. Okay, that's cool. Thank you for hosting the challenge. I had a lot of fun finding my way back into Blender. That's good to hear. That's the point of it, right? Wilson said, here's my submission. It's the first bit of art I've done in a while, so wanted to do something quite abstract. Of course you did. You're a Blender YouTuber. We all do abstract stuff. I mean, look at you guys. Come on, what are we doing? We're all doing the same stuff. Look at us. We're all just doing abstract things. We're just replicating each other in weird ways, but some of us look better than others. I'm sure Ducky would be very proud of us. All right, so what am I going to do for the first, second, third places? Now, remember, guys, it doesn't matter, right? It really doesn't matter. Everyone's done different stuff. It's all different use cases. It's all different challenges. But look, I've kept open the ones that I like the most, just naturally. But, I mean, I like other ones. This one was creative, Owlgust's one, because I like the idea of having it bleed through like that, so... Oof. I liked Hili's one because I thought this was quite a special idea with like the animation flaring around. So I don't know if I want to give anyone like first, second, third places, but puts me in an uncomfortable position. Why don't I give Curtis Holt first place and no one else gets anything else? Chris James first, Carbon Light second, White Rooster third, Owlgust gets a bonus award, which I'm going to call Monsters Inc. And Hili gets a bonus award, which I'm going to call Don't Leave the Gas On or something like that. But then I also want to give Gekitsuu a bonus award, because I can't give everyone bonus awards. Mbee's was really cool. Like, I don't want to leave that one out. Okay, well maybe scratch the bonus award, because the only reason I had them in the first place was to kind of let people know that I still like the artwork, because they wouldn't be able to know otherwise. But since I've made a video for this, you know otherwise if you've watched it. So you know that I appreciated these very much. Right, so I don't need to provide the bonus award. So this is how I'm looking. Chris James's, again, the only thing I would like a bit more light on the creature here, just to kind of make it more obvious on the first glance. Like you should be able to see, whoa, creature, you know. And the carbon light one was cool because specifically in this part of the video where we have the curved lights creasing over the environment light going on and like the changing screen lights on the edge, really like that. And then this one, nicely balanced, well made. But I feel like I would put this one in like the same tier as Mbee's one here. Bring these up. So if I had to, I would feel like maybe putting these joint or something, but because I feel like I complained about the top up here, so I need to make a complaint for White Roosters. Okay, this feels like there's some odd depth going on the edge of the effect here. Like it looks like something is stuck to a surface, like some kind of mold, and the lights kind of, it doesn't look like it's got like proper depth going there. Okay, so that would be my complaint for this one. These generated textures and the repeating patterns are my complaint for this one. So you two are on the same level now, okay? You can have joint third place. So I think that will do us for this challenge. Thank you very much to everyone who participated. That was a very interesting one, and one that I think means quite a lot to me because it's all to do with emissive lighting, and you know how I love using emissive lighting in my artwork. So thanks for watching. Hopefully you found this interesting and or useful. Like I said, feel free to go over to the most recent video on the second channel about a new type of art challenge. It's a proposal for a new type using it to like having us create a music video together by making a bunch of different animation clips, because you may find that interesting. So yeah, thanks for watching everyone. If you appreciated me sitting here going through all of your your artworks, maybe give the super thanks on the main channel a try. That's something we've set up recently. If you press the thanks button under the video, you can get your comment highlighted with a certain color, I believe, depending on like how much money you provide. No one's given that a try on my channel yet. Who's going to be the first one to use it? I don't know. What of you maybe? I would appreciate it very much, because this channel is not monetized yet, so I can't make any money off this video. So yes, in fact, from the looks of it, it's going to be a little while before we do get monetized on this channel. Let me just double check. I've got the subs, but 1,504 watch hours out of 4,000 for the year, so we've still got a while. So I can't make any money off this channel for a while. Anyway, yeah, I'll get back to work. You guys get back to being like beautiful, wonderful, creative people. Thanks for taking part, everyone, and I will see you next time.